There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to what is our last in our series of Ancare presentations during the ALAS 2020 virtual conference. I want to thank everyone for who's been here this week. It's been great to see some faces and get this little bit of connection through with you. So I'm Gord. I'm the Director of Marketing for Ancare, and speaking with us today is our West Coast rep, Vinnie, whose last name I always screw up, so let me try. Garnier. Close? Close? We'll see. Vinnie.
Yeah, that's actually the Italian pronunciation. Guarnieri, we say in America, but you're
Guarnieri. My wife is Italian. I've got to try to do something anyhow, right? Vinnie joined Ancare back in 2011. He's been a real asset to our team, and he is without a doubt probably the most proficient person we have when it comes to this particular product, TechTrak. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it right over to Vinnie.
Thank you, Gordon. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and I'd be very happy to be meeting in person with everybody, but I guess this is the next best thing, so thank you for joining us. And as Gordon said, I've been with Ancare for over 9 years now. Prior to that, I've got about 29 and a half years in the industry. Many of you know I was a manager, so I was at Bristol Myers Squibb out in Connecticut for 15, and then I was at Children's Hospital Los Angeles for about 5.5 years. So pretty much almost 20 years of my career, I ran animal facilities, and cross-contamination and concerns about murine viruses and rodent viruses in general has always been, a huge factor in my career. So, going back to probably early 2000s, I actually have experience with polymer flooring. TechTrak is a polymer flooring. And, as far as contamination control goes, a polymer is a substance or a material that's molecular structure is composed of many repeating units, either entirely or primarily of that unit. What it provides you is an ultra smooth, or what's called an optically smooth surface. This surface is also a high energy surface, and it creates a short range electromagnetic van der Waals static force charge. So basically the polymer itself will not only impact and pull contamination off feet and wheels, it'll also pull up from about knee level to pull down into the substrate. And then it's also static dissipative, I guess is the word. It dissipates static electricity once it traps stuff. So to give a little background, I mean, we're all familiar with the status quo of shoe covers or booties, foot dips, and sticky mats. So those all have their place. And in my mind, they're quite archaic at this point. The challenges of each are pretty significant. Booties, have a number of challenges. Most people use shoe covers in their facilities. They definitely make sense in some areas. They'll double booty for a quarantine area or something along those lines. But studies have shown that booties will actually pick up more contamination walking down a hallway or somewhere else than shoes will. So that's one concern. Another concern is cost and waste. It's very expensive. Sometimes people wear them for 5 steps and they go in the garbage. On top of that, there's the time and there's the ergonomic challenge. People putting them on, I've seen people hurt their backs, fall down, so on and so forth. Booty dispensers are great, but I can't seem to make those things work myself. And since I don't work in a facility every single day, I always realize, how cumbersome it is to put shoe covers on. Beyond that, there are various types, but once you put them on, in some ways, it's a physical barrier as long as they last. And if you go into a washroom, a cage wash, or a wet animal room, you're going to shred those things. So, it's more at that point a psychological barrier than anything. They do work, but as far as technology goes, it's pretty basic. Foot dips, I never really understood. I've seen foot dips that were so corrosive they ate the soles off people's shoes. People tend to step over those and avoid them. So they're good in theory. In practice, they're not so great. They're messy. They get dirty, and depending upon whatever quad or chemical you're using, they can be fairly caustic. Beyond that, we have sticky mats, which many peel off sticky mats many people are familiar with. Those are great to some degree, but the challenge is if I step on it and leave some contamination, and then Gordon steps on it, he's going to potentially pick up what I left on there. Then when you actually peel off the upper, dirty sticky mat for a fresh one, you're aerosolizing all those contaminants. So we do have some data from GSK did a study a number of years ago with peel off sticky mats versus polymer flooring versus TechTrak. And what that showed is the sticky mats, and I got to look at my notes here, For wheel-borne contaminants, it removed about 25 to 27%, depending upon the auger they used for the test. For footborne, it was much less efficacious. It was only 11 to 15%. The polymer flooring actually eliminated 99.8% of contamination, both from shoes, from feet, and from wheels. So it's a huge difference. It's a significant difference. So the best thing I think about, yes.
Sorry, I just want to chime in, because when you were talking about shoe covers and foot baths and stuff like that, I gotta relate to that, because this is a size 15 Croc. Yes, I wear Crocs in my house, and I do have size 15 feet. And I can tell you that getting a shoe cover onto these things is virtually impossible. So when your tradespeople come in and they're wearing boots, and construction boots are about the same size as my size 15 foot, they have a hard time getting those on properly. It's difficult to get shoe covers on effectively. Even for foot baths, sometimes my foot doesn't fit into the foot bath. So, you know, using something that is completely passive, there's a lot to be said for that. Sorry, I just wanted to chime in about that.
Well, that's great. I mean, I got a size 11 foot and I can't fit shoe covers on half the time. So I can't imagine how you fit any shoe covers on that foot. Yeah, that's its own challenge too. Sometimes you have to tear them to even get them on your foot. And you know, the cost factor of shoe covers is tremendous. I mean, it's a lot of waste and it's a lot of cost. Getting back to the cross-contamination aspect and efficacy, one of the primary methods that the TechTrak does eliminate contamination is it's got a silver biocide in the substrate itself. So basically the way the mats work, and it's really plug and play, and I'll get into the installation and that next, but when you step on it, it's going to pull everything off the surface of the shoe and the contact area into the substrate. It's going to kill it and it's going to trap it. So it's pretty much also a surface, like I said earlier, it's quite high energy, so it can handle a lot of contamination into the actual mat itself. So even in very busy facilities, a full day's traffic is usually not going to overburden the mat itself. So the TechTrak mats are a semi-permanent installation. They're not like a sticky mat or something where you're just going to lay it down. You want it mounted to the floor directly. They do mount with semi-permanent with industrial adhesives, a water-resistant adhesive. Thank you, Gordon. And another adhesive in the center of the mat, so it's extremely secure, and it's also watertight. There's a, thank you, Gord, and I'll hold up some more stuff later. The edge molding of the mat that goes around it, and I'll show you some samples in a few minutes, is plastic welded to the mat itself, as Gordon's showing right there. That junction is a plastic weld, so it's all sealed and waterproof. And the one thing you want to make sure is that there's never any water getting underneath the mat or in the seams, and the only way that would happen is over time with wear and tear. And that's something that is not something that commonly happens. In regards to the mats themselves, the materials, and if it's installed through Ancare, through our installers, and myself as one of them in my territory, and I'm in District 8, as most of you know, West Coast. Basically, I just totally lost my train of thought. Let me take a step back here. Installation-wise, getting back to that. So the semi-permanent installation is, some people ask, can we pull it up? Can we move it somewhere else? Once it's down to stay. But again, as I said, it's really a plug and play situation because, for example, people hate to put booties on, and they'll step over the dip tanks, so on and so forth. But with this, usually it's going to encompass the hallway or the area from alcove to alcove. The mat itself is about 6.5 foot wide. It can be cut to any length and it can be narrowed. And then the molding around it, the perimeter is it's between 2.5 and 3 inches. So usually we run it alcove to alcove. So people have no choice but to walk over it, but they do like to walk on it. It's available in several colors. It's blue speckled, gray, and gray speckled. And it's also available in a TechTrak Tough. Most facilities that I've installed have the standard TechTrak. The TechTrak Tough is not a bad idea. It's got a thicker backing material on it. So the substrate itself is on top of an actual, like a network, a netting, so to speak. And over time, eventually over the long term, that's how the mats will eventually wear out is not so much the efficacy ever stops, but you have a physical separation over a long period of the actual substrate from the backing, and sometimes with just wear and tear. So the installation, when done through certified installers, there's a 3-year warranty on that, and there's a 3-year warranty on the materials. Now, the good news is that most people in most facilities, I should say, will recoup the expenses of the mats based on what they're saving on shoe covers over the first year or two. And beyond that, the majority of facilities are going to get anywhere from 4 to 6 years out of these mats. I've got some busy facilities that I work with, including the Salk Institute and UC Davis. They've had their mats about 6 years now. So they're just getting around to looking at replacing them. Very high traffic facilities, lots of activity, everything from primate batteries to, rodent batteries, lots of heavy equipment. The TechTrak Tough is, like I said, that's got a more durable backing. That's great for loading dock areas. Some facilities like to put it throughout the facility, just because it's a little more durable. It's good for loading docks in areas where you have a powered pallet jack, or you have a tow motor that can basically turn in its own footprint and has a lot of torque. So ideally, you would have to have that TechTrak Tough for that kind of usage. So,
Vinnie, I have a few questions that have come up. If you don't mind, if I go ahead and interrupt you for these.
Please.
Okay, first of all, you talk that often it goes from alcove to alcove. What is the minimum length that's required for this?
I mean, good question. Thanks, Gord. That's really important. You want to ideally get a minimum of 3 footfalls per each foot and 3 wheel rotations. So most carts, even with a 6-inch, wheel time supply, you need over 2 feet. But for our footsteps, ideally I'd say 6-foot mat in a tight area is probably about as short as you want to go. If it's in a gowning area, that's like in a small room, people tend to 2 and 3 step around while they're gowning. So you're going to get plenty of footfalls. If it's, say, at the entrance of a vibram, a lot of times people will open the door and they'll take a long step in and then just, cook right through. So in those areas, usually you want at least about a 10-foot run. Staff training is great to remind the staff that you want to get 3 footfalls with each foot, but they're not always going to do that. So the best way to, avoid that is just to have a longer run. Most facilities put, probably a 10-foot is a pretty standard length. Maybe a 12-foot and as small as a 6-foot. And so you really want to, put it where you have your elevators, facility entrances for technical staff, so on and so forth. You want to put it in the areas where you get the most traffic. When I was back at Bristol Myers and Wallingford, obviously in the Northeast, we get a lot of snow. So the main entrance to the facility was about 50 or 60 feet from our entrance to ours. So by the time people got to the vivarium entrance, they'd gotten the gross soil off their feet, hopefully the snow and the ice and stuff. You don't want to have water pooling on these mats because it's a slip hazard. Plus, any kind of residue or buildup on the surface is going to affect the efficacy of the mats themselves. Gord, you dropped out for a second. I don't know if you had another question.
I just had a huge heart attack. Zoom quit on me. I'm here as the host and it quit. I thought that everyone was kicked off. You have no idea how much relief I felt when I came in and still heard you talking, Vinnie.
I'm glad I made your day, Gordon.
Okay, so you talk about the standard TechTrak and the TechTrak Tough, and in particular mentioned with TechTrak Tough that if you're going to be having like a forklift or something like that going across it, that's when you'd want to be using the TechTrak Tough. How is this stuff, even the standard one, if people are moving like a pallet jack across it and stuff like that? Is that any concern?
Yeah, good question. So for standard deliveries, like, bedding on a pallet, it's pretty heavy, but, even some of these primate batteries probably weigh, 800 pounds. The standard TechTrak can handle that just fine. The TechTrak Tough is some added security. When it comes to, sometimes we've had people moving irradiators and things that are exceedingly heavy, like, 5-6 tons, stuff like that. When that happens, you really got to put some construction plywood over it, because something of that extreme weight can actually dig into the polymer itself, even the Tough. But the backing on the Tough is really good, for, it can handle a forklift and things like that, which are quite heavy themselves. But yeah, the TechTrak itself handles, in most facilities, with any kind of animal rack, and I think the primate racks are usually the heaviest, or even a fully loaded IBC rack, that's no problem at all.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, then there's just a couple more things I want to ask before we maybe opening up to other people for questions. First of all, where would you actually put this in a facility? Where would be the key places?
Yeah, you might have been cut out. So basically, facility entrances and gowning areas are the primary. Outside cage washes, and again, dirt quarantine areas, dirty areas. It keeps the dirty stuff out of the clean rooms and the dirty stuff from coming out of the dirty areas. So it kind of works really well both ways. And one thing I've seen from my historical background as a manager with quality assurance testing, and we've also seen this through the years with our customers that have it in their QA testing, is, again, it works exceedingly well. It's a plug and play system. The only maintenance or upkeep on is once a day cleaning. And the cleaning itself, and Gord, you'll probably have a few things to add about this, but it's a two-step process. And the thing that sometimes frustrates me is I'll have a customer call me with a question and they've eliminated one of the two steps. So you can't do that. It's a really simple cleaning process. Your facility quat, whatever you're using for your disinfectant, could be a hydrogen peroxide based products such as Rescue, could be a 5% bleach. Whatever you're using, basically the standard is once a day. If it's a very mellow facility, you might do it every other day. If it's extremely busy, maybe twice a day, depending on the mat. So really all involves, and I recommend a microfiber mop, because when people use old school mops to mop, they tend to just absolutely drench it. You don't need to just soak the surface. So a physical mopping with a microfiber mop over the surface, what that does is the physical action releases everything that the mat has trapped and killed. It releases it to the surface. And then the second step is simple. You squeegee it off. So once you squeegee it off, you're basically reactivating the mat, and you're taking all that stuff off the surface of it, and you're good to go. The challenges are, I've seen where sometimes people will just spray it and squeegee it. Well, that's not going to properly clean it. Then and then the other thing sometimes they'll do is they won't squeegee it fully. And the challenge there is it's like anything. You're going to have a buildup on the surface. If you get any buildup on the surface, you're going to affect the substrate's ability, the polymer's ability to, take care of the contamination for you. So, but in and of itself, it's probably a 5-minute job, to mop and squeegee, and then it's good to go. And, through the years, Gord. Through the years, I've seen people, complain about it, but then, you get a staff member that goes through, and even if you got 4 or 5 mats, it takes about half an hour. And it's a lot easier than, stocking gowning stations with booties and, putting new sticky mats down. And the other thing with sticky mats is, since it's layer upon layer, many times if you don't have a tall enough door opening, or under the base of the door, if you got a sweep or something, it'll catch it, it'll bunch them all up, it'll ruin them. And in the data, TechTrak did a cost analysis, and I forget the facility, but basically the cost per square foot of a sticky mat over the course of a year is about $1,900, because that would include the replacement and, just the number of products you're going through. Gord?
Well, it's what a coincidence that we happen to be talking about cleaning, and I happen to have this set up here in my office. What a coincidence. So what I've got, okay, I'm going to be honest. I had to use flour, because if I don't use something that would really show up, it simply wouldn't appear on camera. So footprints, first fall, second fall, third fall. Vinnie mentioned how important 3-foot falls is, and you can see how much particles, how much more it pulls off by the time they get to this 3rd footfall. Now, I don't have a mop or anything. What I do have here is just a spray bottle with some soapy water. So I'm going to spray that on, get some of that on there. But Vinnie did mention that needs to be actually mopped, and that's because you need something, as I get out of focus here, because you need something to actually, move the stuff around. If you don't move the dirt on the surface, it's just going to stay stuck there. So you need a little bit of action, and then squeegee it dry, and that's it.
It's a good squeegee, Gordon.
Thank you, thank you. There we are. Thank you very much. I had Ancare pay for it. And it really is a very simple process to clean this stuff. Most facilities, you're cleaning your floors every day anyhow. So it's just a matter of learning how to do it for TechTrak. So.
Thank you. And one thing you will see over time with these mats is you'll get scuffs on the surface from the soles of people's, shoes, the rubber. You'll see scuff marks. That in and of itself, that's no problem at all. That's not going to create an issue. But in high traffic areas, sometimes over time there'll be a black residue that builds up just from traffic and from having it not sufficiently cleaned. And that's easily removable with some ethanol or your facility disinfectant. You put it on there, let it sit 5-10 minutes, and use some elbow grease, and it cleans right up. So the mats themselves, pretty much the polymer is going to stay effective throughout the life of the mat if it's properly maintained. The only challenges I see is if sometimes you'll see damage, somebody will cut one or slice one with something. That's not really, that's kind of, on the user, so to speak. But if the gaps in the seam sealant open up between the border, the edge molding, and the mat itself, that's something that's very easily fixable. And that's something to catch right away, because if you don't want to get any water in there, or if, say, an edge comes up, I've seen in some instances outside a cage wash at a facility I was at recently, where the cage wash is just blasting water out the door, and it's hitting the mat, and then it's going to get under the mat, and then it's going to wick underneath. And once the material gets wet from underneath, it's not good. Basically, you have to cut it back and repair it. So in most cases, that's not an issue. It's just a matter of having people pay attention if they see anything pull up. And I'm talking over the course of several years, or a seam gap open up. It's easily fixable and maintained. And I've even had some of my customers at further places, when they've had a seam gap, I've left them stuff. They've just, put a little bit in there. But again, it's really, once it's in, it looks good. It works great. And people really tend to love it. I have not gotten anything but positive feedback, and my own personal experience prior to being on this end of the desk, so to speak, has been excellent with it. So
I have one last question, Vinnie, and then I think we probably got to let people go. You mentioned all the time that this is a semi-permanent installation, and you mentioned the longevity of it. What do you do when the stuff is finally worn out?
Well, I mean, hopefully, I would say you replace it, and that's been the norm. So when some TechTrak mats are replaced, there is a removal cost for the old mats, because I gotta tell you, it's not easy. Even to pull a 4-foot long mat off, even if the edges are pulled up, it's a lot of work. I mean, it sticks that good. So that would involve, a charge for removal, and then there would be installation cost of the new mats, which basically would be put right in the footprint. When the old mats come up, there's still going to be a lot of tack on the floor. That doesn't need to be completely removed. We just basically even it out. So you have, smooth areas, and then just put new adhesive over it, put the new mat down, and it's good to go.
Okay, so basically swap out the old one, put in the new, and you're good to go for another anywhere 4 to 6 years, sometimes even longer. I know that I've had some clients who have had it in one place now for 10 years, and it's still performing well because it's not terribly high traffic. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where it's lasted, I'm going to say even on the low side, 4 years, and I don't think that's true. I think it's even longer than that. So it really is a truly fantastic product. Yes, Vinnie is the Ancare expert on these things, but I can guarantee you that anyone at Ancare knows a fair bit about it. So if it's something you're interested in, contact your Ancare rep. Best thing to do is to show us pictures or have us come by, give us an idea of where you're thinking of using it, and we'll help you figure out if that is the best place, how much you should be using. We'll talk colors and patterns and all that stuff, so you know whether or not it makes sense fashion-wise. And you will probably ultimately even save some money. So that's always a good thing. I'd like to thank everyone again for being here today. Vinnie, thank you very much. That was awesome. And I really do hope that everyone has a great show. If you're interested in this product at all and you want to share this information, we're going to be posting this video a lot, as well as all of our other ones, up at our Ancare booth. And you can always send people there so they can get the information as well.
So you're not going to let me ask a question then, Gordon?
Oh, geez.
You said you'll give us time to ask questions.
Yes, no, please. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. You talked about BSL rooms. That you have done the shorter ones, Vinnie?
Yes.
He froze too. Vinnie, don't freeze. Come back.
I'm here.
Okay. Temporary. If my BSL is only temporary, can I have so that it's not down on the floor permanently? Is there any way that we can stick it just temporarily while we use it? Because I'm not worried about underneath it, because that will eventually be mopped out when she's finished with her research anyway, and then the room changes.
I mean, good question, Maya. The challenge is that if it's not securely monitored to the floor, it's gonna be a slip hazard, and also you're gonna get water under it. So, you know, we've had some questions through the years. We had one facility that wanted, you know, put it in a frame, like a kind of a sticky mat frame, but that's really not how the mats work. So they have to actually be secured to the floor to work. I mean, it would work if they were in, say, a plastic cradle, so to speak, but you know, then you gotta be concerned with it moving around. It's not something we've done for that reason.
Yeah, because I don't need it very long in front of the door. Her studies won't be a BSL for very long, and you know, it's better at the outside, but it was just a thought. It'd be nice to have one just to put there as opposed to the sticky.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Thank you for the question.
All right, I'll quit bugging you now, Gordon.
I am sorry. We were over time, so I completely forgot to ask for questions. If you do have questions, please go ahead and fire them out. Let's put Vinnie on the spot.
Oh, please do. So no more questions. And Gordon, I know a facility, I heard of a facility that had it for 15 years. I mean, it was very low traffic, but, and you know, with that being said, I haven't seen any mats that needed replacement unless they were damaged by staff members. So, you know, the washroom one I talked about, that one lasted a couple of years before they ruined it. So I'd replace that one, but that was on them. So, I mean, it's not the kind of thing, I can't think of any mats that we've replaced, you know, in less than 5 years.
I think it's also worth noting that the only time that I've ever seen any real problems with it has been because it's been a client self-install. And yes, you are welcome to install this yourselves or have it done for you. But when you have us do it, of course, you're using our trained technicians, and you're that much more sure that it's going to be done properly. But I've probably had 3 problems in the years that we've been dealing with this, and every single time it's been because of a client install. So that's just something
you make a good point. One thing I've seen too is, you know, where they've actually put the edge molding on top of the mat instead of next to it. You know, and all kinds of weird stuff. The thing is, if the client installs it and follows the installation directions and does it 100% accurately, then it's warranted. But if they mess it up, then there's no warranty on them. You know, they kind of lose the warranty on the material for that reason.
Exactly.
I kind of get concerned that they want to change our flooring, and as soon as I get this and we get it down, they'll say, "Hey, we're going to get you new flooring," and I'll be like, "Great."
Well, you know
then
what?
they could replace them based on replacing the flooring, though. I mean, I would hate to see that. But.
Yeah, yeah. Could you write that into the whole replace the flooring part? Maybe that's how I'll get it. Good idea. Thanks, Vinnie. Good idea.
Brainstorm.
You know, it is also still worth noting that even if you think that that might be in the future, it still might be worthwhile to do a cost analysis, because some people, they will pay this product off very, very quickly. So they might tell you that they're going to change out your floors, but it might be a year off. Well, this will pay for itself in 6 months, possibly, depending on the situation. So do the cost analysis anyhow.
Right.
Could do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinnie. It's great.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Miss you guys. Hopefully we'll have a meeting next year in person.
For real, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
See ya.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Gord.